The thing I really want to get into is, since it is Thanksgiving, like I said, the biggest things in wrestling during this time was Thanksgiving had the Starrcade event. But this particular Starrcade is very interesting because this was the era that it was Starrcade coming to the Chi-Town in Chicago. But for the first time, it had competition because this was the first time that WWF ran the very first Survivor Series against Starrcade.
Yeah, quote unquote competition, but I'm sure we'll get into that story.
Yes. So the biggest thing about the story is during this time, apparently Vince McMahon called up all the pay-per-view providers and said, listen, motherfuckers, if you guys fucking air this Starrcade, you ain't getting WrestleMania. And a lot of them backed out, but a lot of them didn't. So,
well, I heard that only 5 of them didn't back out.
Yeah. So, yeah,
and that's why the buy rate was so low.
Yes. So he fucking, this is the era where the feud was hot. It was hot. It was hotter than our fucking our boy Terry chopping off some arms. That's how hot it was. Okay. It was intense. But let's break down some of this card. Let's see. Let's do the Survivor Series one first, because this was the first ever Survivor Series, and of course, Survivor Series is still going on to this day as well. Because Survivor Series, of course, was this last Sunday. For this 2021.
Yeah, because it's not on Thanksgiving anymore.
Yeah, it's not on Thanksgiving anymore. They actually don't run any kind of wrestling shows on Thanksgiving anymore. That tradition is pretty much gone. But I always thought that was a cool tradition. I mean, now, most of the time, I'm pretty sure it was like that back in the day. Mostly we just have football games coming on right now. But, you know, back in the day, we had like a jam-packed wrestling nights. And it was a very hot wrestling night as well, too. Like, they used to sell out that Greensboro Coliseum like all the time back in the day.
Yeah, that was a hot ticket then. Like going like, because I mean, from hearing stories, like I always thought it was weird that they would have a wrestling show on Thanksgiving. You know, because people wouldn't be able to really travel for it. But maybe people probably didn't travel as much then. But you know, you wouldn't really be able to travel for it because you'd spend the day with your family and Thanksgiving. But hearing it explained, basically they ran that show that night because people would go eat with their family during the day, and then by the nighttime, they weren't really doing much of anything. They were just kind of sitting around. So they would give them something to do, and everything was closed then. Like you didn't have back then you didn't have like Walmart open 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
You know, retail people opening on Thanksgiving night and shit like that, which hopefully is gone forever now. But, you know, bring Thanksgiving back, I say. But anyway, they, but you know, you couldn't go shopping after, you know, you could just sit around. So it was, and football was over by then. So basically you would have, you know, a completely open night, and people would come out and watch the wrestling.
Yeah. That's a lot better than trying to like push down some fat dude at Walmart trying to get some TV.
Exactly. Some $2 TV that's worth $1.50 or whatever.
Yep. But Survivor Series 1987. So this is the first ever Survivor Series. It was in the Richfield Coliseum in Richfield, Ohio.
Yep.
And the card is, let's see. Oh, where is it? Hold on. Is this one of the ones that you watched while you were going back? Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's one of the ones I watched. And now, when I say I watched, I didn't watch every episode of every match, but I did forward through a lot of them. You know, through some of the matches, but this was a pretty packed card.
Yeah. So this was all just Survivor Series elimination match. They don't nowadays they'll have like maybe 2 and then a couple regular matches. But back in the day, it was just all elimination matches. So we'll go to the first ones. The first one, we have our boy, Brutus Beefcake, Jake Roberts, Jim Duggan, Randy Savage, and Ricky Steamboat. What a team.
Yeah, I mean, you got all those guys on one team. That's just one team.
Yeah, that's just one team.
You know, so like it's already the greatest. If you're a WWF fan in 1987, this is already the greatest thing you've ever seen.
Yeah, it's pretty much because you know back in this day they didn't have like 3 hours of Raw. They didn't have 2 hours of SmackDown. They didn't have all this crap. They just had like maybe 1 hour of Superstars where you would see these guys just beat up some local jobber, you know? So this right here was like, this is like, if you're like John was saying, this, if you're a fan, this is like, whoa, shit, all these people together at one ring? What the hell? And they defeated the team of Danny Davids, Harley Race, my boy Hercules, Ron Bass has returned to Retro Blood, and the Honky Tonk Man.
Yes. So the second half of that match is not quite as stellar as the first half, but still, you're going to get a good match.
We got Harley Race in there, King Harley Race.
You got Harley Race, who, I don't know, they must have paid Harley a little bit more to be on that team, I guess. But that match went 24 minutes.
Wow.
So there's only 4 matches on this card.
Yeah.
And it's probably nearly 3 hours long, the show.
Yeah, man.
So that match went 24 minutes.
Well, we had to get fucking... Wow, that's like a very, if you really look at that first team is like intense compared to the second team. Wow. I mean, you got a couple good wrestlers up in there. Ron Bass ain't too bad. Harley Race up in there, but yeah, that's something. The second match we got over here is the Rockin' Robin, the Fabulous Moolah, and the Jumping Bomb Angels.
Yep. Which was Yamazaki and Tateno.
Yes, which is actually one of the. They were obviously the workhorses back in the day, because they were just all over the place. They were like kind of very they're like before their time when it comes to women's wrestling. And we also had Velvet McIntyre. They defeated Dawn Marie. What the hell? ECW Dawn Marie? What the?
Surely not. I don't know who that is though. Like,
I'm not sure either.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with.
They defeated Donna, I'm going to butcher her name, Cristello, Sensational Sherry. Oh, go ahead.
I would say Cristanello, but yeah.
Yeah, it was probably Cristanello.
And then Sensational Sherry, and then Leilani Kai and Junie Martin.
Yes, the Glamour Girls. So, a very rare women's match over here in 1987. So, yeah. I mean, we have a couple good ones in here. I mean, Jumping Bomb Angels are very... well-known. Sensational Sherry is obviously a legendary figure as well, too. Ooh, they're back. Strike Force. Rick Martel versus Tito my bad. Let me start over. So the next match we got is the Strike Force. Rick Martel and Tito Santana. And the British Bulldogs making their return to Retro Blood. And the fabulous Rougeos. And the Killer... Man, this is like stacked up. Holy shit. And the Killer Bees. How do they even fit in the fucking ring apron?
I didn't watch this match when I rewatched this show, but this was a 10-on-10 Survivor Series match.
Holy
There were
fuck.
20 people around that ring.
The fuck? And the Young Stallions. My boy Jim Powers and Paul Roma.
Yep.
What's the other tag team Paul Roma was part of that was really good? Was it Power and Glory? I think it was Power and Glory.
Possibly.
I can't remember, but Paul Roma's he's a something. So they defeated Demolition. Yes, our boys Demolition has made it back.
Axis Smash.
The Russians, what do you say it? The Boloviks?
The Bolsheviks.
The Bolsheviks, yes.
Yeah. Boris Zukov and Nikolai Volkov. Everybody in the, although this was starting to run low, but everybody in the 80s had to have an evil Russian team.
Yes, you had to have at least one evil Russian team. And for somebody from the Orient.
Yeah, someone from the Orient. It doesn't matter what Asian country they're from.
Yes, as long as
they're from the Orient and they're evil.
Yes.
They're all
evil.
Speaking of this, I don't know if you know. I'm sure you do know this, but this is kind of interesting. So, now I can't remember. I think it's Smash, of Demolition.
Mm-hmm.
Barry Darso. So when he worked for Jim Crockett, he was an evil Russian.
Yep.
He was Killer Khrushchev.
Yes, Killer Khrushchev. Yep, I remember that. Yep. With my boy, the Russian Sickle.
Exactly. The Russian Sickle.
The Russian Sickle. Like I said, we had the Hart Foundation over here, too. We have the Islanders, Haku and Tama. And we had the Dream Team, Dino Bravo and Greg Valentine. And, of course, the Strike Force Bulldogs, that team defeated the Demolition Team. So that seems like it's a very hard match to watch. That shit went 37 minutes. Holy shit.
It went 37 minutes. It was a 10-on-10 match. There were 20 people in the ring. There were also 5 managers, apparently.
Yeah. No, I didn't even bring up
the ring.
I didn't even bring up the fucking managers because there's like a ton of them, like in every fucking. So this is the era of WWF where there's just managers for everybody. Everybody had a fucking manager. I'm talking about everybody. Even people that didn't even need a manager, they got one. Even though, of course, my favorite manager during this era is Bobby Heenan, which is probably almost everybody else's favorite manager. But, we had some other good ones too. But everybody during this time definitely had a manager.
Yeah.
So we're here at the main event of the first ever Survivor Series 1987. The card that we have to threaten pay-per-view companies and closed circuit companies to air. We have, in the main event, we have Andre the Giant, Butch Reed, King Kong Bundy, One Man Gang, and my boy, Rick Rude. With Bobby Heenan and Slick. They defeated the mega team of Bam Bam Bigelow, Don Morocco, Hulk Hogan, Ken Patera, and Paul Orndorff. So that seems like a badass main event, though.
That would be an incredible main event. 22 minutes that went.
Yep.
But yeah, seeing Bam Bam Bigelow that pretty early in his career teaming with Hulk Hogan. I'm sure I don't remember how this ended, but I'm guessing that it came down to Hogan and Andre the Giant.
Yeah,
and Hogan wins everything probably.
Yeah, of course. So during this time, I would definitely be a little bit more fan of the heel side because, like I said before in other podcasts, Rick Rude was probably one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. And I know during this fact, if I was rocking out in the 1987 era, he would be probably my top favorite wrestler of this era. King Kong Bundy was pretty good too. Like, obviously, we had to have all big dudes for Hulk Hogan. This is the era of like the big dudes with the Hulk Hogan. But Hulk Hogan also had some pretty good matches with smaller guys too. So. But like I said, Rick Rude was probably my favorite out of all this team right over here. And of course, Andre the Giant, like, how much more can you say? The guy, during this time, he's probably like very like on his last leg. I mean, because this is right after WrestleMania. This is like, Andre's winding down. A lot slower, a lot more injuries. Humongous at this time. So.
Yeah, he was after he turned heel right before WrestleMania 3. Yeah.
Yep.
But actually, now look at it. So the heels won this.
Yeah. Very rare win for the heels, especially since Hulk Hogan was on the babyface side. Because most of the time when it was pay-per-view, Hulk Hogan never lost. I mean, that guy fucking won everything.
Yeah, and he was counted out after 16 minutes. So Hogan wasn't eliminated, of course, but he was counted out. And it went down to Andre and Bam Bam, and then Andre eliminated Bam Bam to win, or he pinned him. Back then, you could, so he pinned
That's right.
him
This
win,
is the famous with the Soul Survivor.
Yep, the Soul Survivor.
So let's get into Starrcade, 1987, Chi-Town Heat, brother. This is from Chicago, Illinois. Every time wrestling goes to Chicago, that shit's gonna be hot. Chicago is just one of those areas where wrestling is always gonna be hot at. So this part is probably gonna be pretty awesome. So. How are we going to counteract the first ever Survivor Series, the Red Hot WWF? Well, let's see. The first match is going to have Sting, Michael P.S. Hayes, brother, and Jimmy Garvin. They fought Eddie Gilbert, Rick Steiner, and Larry Zbyszko. I can't even say his fucking name. Larry Zbyszko. I can't even say his name.
Larry Zbyszko.
To a time limit draw. And he had Baby Doll with her. There we go. So a time limit draw, which is really weird. They didn't really do a lot of time limit draws on pay-per-view. But, I guess this is what they did back in the day. It went 15 minutes.
Yep. So it went 15-minute time limit draw. So another thing, too, before we get into the second match, first of all, that first match, that would have been a really good curtain jerker. Like seeing Sting in the first match.
Yeah, this is early Sting,
that's
though.
That's crazy. That is pretty early Sting. You're right. Yeah. He's not a superstar yet. But another thing, too, we got to mention before we get into this next match, though, is that Crockett Promotions had just bought the UWF.
Yeah.
Which was Mid-South Wrestling.
That's how they got Sting.
That's how they got Sting. You're right. That is how they got Sting. So Bill Watts was running Mid-South Wrestling, and then he was trying to take it to the next level to rival the WWF and go national. And it was like an overnight. He changed it to the UWF, and then it became like an overnight success. And then it was just like a catastrophic failure. Like it just dropped, and he had to sell the company to Crockett.
Yep.
Which is why on the second match, we have the UWF Heavyweight Championship being defended.
Yep. Steve Williams.
The second spot in the card, yeah. Dr. Death.
Dr. Death, Steve Williams versus Barry Windham, which is probably a badass match, to be honest with you. Those two can go work, like they both are one of the all-time best workers in the ring. Barry Windham was actually one of my favorite workers during this era. Next match is all about the 80s right here, brother. We got the Rock and Roll Express. Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson defeated the Midnight Express, Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane with Jim Cornette and Big Bubba Rogers in a Skywalker's match. Holy shit.
Yep.
Now,
holy shit.
This is the one where Jim Cornette, I think he blew out his both knees when he fell from the scaffold during this time. And so this match, obviously the Rock and Roll Express and the Midnight Express had some great tag team matches during this time. This, I don't think it was one of them, because this one, they're on like a freaking scaffold.
Yeah, this is definitely not one of them. I mean, well, we might want to explain to the audience what a Skywalker's match is, because even most wrestling fans probably don't even know. But basically, a Skywalker's match is a scaffold match. So you have a ring, like a regular wrestling ring, but 20 feet above that, you have scaffolding. And they climb up on the scaffolding for some reason to fight.
Yes. And
it's always really, really slow because nobody wants to fall 20 feet and die.
And it's always very, like, the scaffold's always very rocky. Yeah. So it's like, you could tell that everybody's nervous. Now, they did do some of these matches in ECW before.
True.
But also, too, to be a little bit relevant nowadays, I'm surprised they haven't done this in GCW. Just wait. They'll bring it back.
I don't know if, I love GCW, but I don't know if the rooms they play in are large enough to have a 20-foot scaffold in it.
When they get some of that more money, we'll see what happens. So we have my boy, Nikita Koloff, the sickle.
Russian sickle.
The Russian sickle boy. I'll just keep fucking Jimmy Crockett back in my head. Look at him. Look at that sickle. He defeated Terry Taylor, the fucking Red Rooster motherfucker, in a championship unification match for the NWA World Television Championship and the UWF Television Championship. So we had a very unification style match on this Starrcade card. So I bet that match is pretty good, though.
Yeah, it went 19 minutes almost. So I bet that was really good. And of course, so unification match, for people who don't know, is if you have two titles, you have two people that hold those titles. They fight over it, and whoever wins, that's the title that they have going forward, and the other title ceases to exist.
Yes.
Which is how Crockett got rid of the UWF World Television Championship to keep his own.
And a couple years after this, around 2001, I believe, we had the Invasion. WWF and WCW did the same kind of concept where they would unify the titles as well. So, little history there. The next match we're going to have is Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. They defeated the Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal, by disqualification for the NWA World Tag Team Championship. What a fucking awesome match that probably was.
Yeah, I bet that was incredible.
These guys just beating the shit out of each other. Two of the greatest teams right there. Just going at it. Of course, disqualification finish. For two badass teams like this, I could see how they can use that, where they don't want to have any of those two teams lose. But
yeah. And then Arn and Tully probably didn't want to get. I haven't seen this match in a really long time, although I've seen this show quite a few times. But Arn and Tully probably didn't want to mix it up too much with Animal and Hulk either.
Yeah. So up next we got Dusty Rhodes. He defeated Lex Luger in a steel cage match to win the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship. Ooh, what a great match.
What a great match! Not the main event.
Not the main event, but a great match.
So there was another good match coming, but yeah. So yeah, that would have been crazy.
So
so I'm guessing Luger was a heel then. I don't really necessarily remember that, but I guess Luger was a heel around this time.
Yeah. So this is like when that we saw the Four Horsemen, but they were about to be. I think they either had Lex Luger in the Four Horsemen during this time, or he's about to be in the Four Horsemen, because he was managed by. He was with J.J. Dillon at this time. So I'm pretty sure this is when they lost Ole Anderson, and we had Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard as the tag champs. We had Lex Luger as a United States champion. We had Ric Flair as a world champion. So we had that incarnation of the Four Horsemen during this time.
Well, when was Barry Windham in the Four Horsemen?
He was after Lex Luger. Like when they kicked out Lex Luger, that's when Barry Windham joined in. So a lot of people like the Barry Windham era a little bit better, but I actually like the Lex Luger era because they were building up this young guy. They'd put him in a hot stable. It's kind of like I wouldn't say like evolution, but it's very similar to how certain wrestling promotions like the Inner Circle, where they bring like a young star like Sammy Guevara in there to be like the young hot rising star. And that's what they were doing with Lex Luger at this time, making him like the very hot, young, rising star. So, and of course,
that's a good point.
Yeah.
And he holds that kind of, and Sammy Guevara kind of holds the title that would be equivalent to this almost.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, interesting. So, yeah, okay.
So, in a very rare occurrence, we have back-to-back steel cage matches. The main event was Ric Flair. He defeated Ron Garvin in a steel cage match to win back the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. So this is the era where I think Ron Garvin, he pinned Ric Flair like on TV or at a house show or something. And it was like this whole big chase that Ron Garvin had because Ric Flair kept ducking him for the world title. And he finally beat Flair for the world title, but this is when Flair got the gold back. He got it back by defeating Ron Garvin. I was never really a big fan of Ron Garvin. Like he was an okay wrestler and everything. He was just a little bit too bland.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Ron Garvin just looked like the guy that worked on my car.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like he just looks like a regular, good old boy mechanic.
He actually
There's
looked
nothing special about him. What?
He actually looked like to me. He actually looked like our boy Todd and Terry's dad.
Oh, kind of, yeah.
Maybe he was the guy in the car getting it on with Maddie, but we'll see.
There's actually the story like you're talking about with Flair and Garvin. So I'm pretty sure. Actually, I know quite a bit about this show, but
nice.
I'm pretty sure that they wanted to get the title off of Flair because he'd held it a really long time.
Yep.
And the original plan was for Magnum TA to take the title from him.
Yes.
But then Magnum was in that car accident and couldn't wrestle again. So they had to find somebody, and Garvin was the person they picked, and it was only a short-term solution anyway. Mm-hmm. Like he was only supposed to hold it. He was like
the transitional champion?
He's a transitional champion, yeah. Kind of like when Mankind won the title that time, Mick Foley won it, because usually a transitional champion will happen when the person that's holding the title doesn't want to be pinned by the person they want to hold the title.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll pick a transitional champion that this person that's holding the title will agree to job to, and then then that person can be beat by the person they actually do want to be champion. So, of course, that didn't happen this time, but they had a transitional champion this time because they didn't have another babyface to put it on. So they put it on Ronnie Garvin, and I think it was the only time he actually held the title.
Yeah.
So it's probably a good spot because it was probably a good time for him to have that one thing that he probably would never have gotten. He probably was in his 40s by that point, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think he was. So we gave him a run with the belt, brother.
Gave him his run, yeah, for a couple months. But yeah, so I mean, this show, I mean, the way we talk about it, I mean, to us, this show seems like it's pretty good, but it was considered pretty lackluster for its day.
Yeah.
Like it was definitely not as good as the year before. Where they were also, I believe, no, they weren't. Were they in Chicago or were they in Greensboro? They were in Greensboro.
They were in Greensboro because this show took place
Yeah.
in Chicago.
Yeah, because it was supposed to be in Greensboro that year, but then because of WrestleMania being, they basically Crockett wanted it to be in a city that people had heard of.
Yeah.
Because WrestleMania was coming from Madison Square Garden, and everybody knew where that was, but nobody knew where the hell Greensboro was.
Yep.
So they wanted to have it in a big city. So and it was a huge money loss, not only because nobody carried the pay-per-view, but it was also a money loss because they could have sold 20,000 tickets at least in Greensboro, because they sold, pretty sure the year before they sold out the Coliseum, and then they sold these. The Coliseum used to have a building beside it, and they did closed circuit TV to that building and sold it out too. So instead of having 35,000 people watching this thing live, they moved it to Chicago, which was only 8,000 seats.
Yep.
So they basically got a third of their ticket money and no pay-per-view buys. So it was pretty much a disaster for the most part.
Yeah, definitely a disaster.
And the Skywalker's match was not as good as the one before it, the year before, where they had the Midnight Express and the Road Warriors.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something. This is definitely one of the most historic two-night events that happened around this time, 1987. So just look at the cards, like just by looking at it on paper. Obviously, I think I would like the Starrcade one a little bit more because I'm a little bit more into like the that style wrestling. But I mean, you cannot deny the star power that Survivor Series had. So I could definitely see how they won that.